I would like to begin by thanking my patrons. Lauren V, Nan, Morgan, Scott, Brandon, Sophie, Suka, and Holy, as well as Lauren R, Klaus, Rose, Thamagata, Halmar, Eliza, Zanyface, Johnny the Night Guard, Billy, Sebhar, your boy Peachy, Kira, World's Greatest Bard, Jamicon, Kopacker Fan, Zim, and Fields, as well as Jose, Jinx, HHD, Rolo, Riley, Emily, Mustard Shirt Guy, Gremlin, and Courtney that I spelled wrong, as well as Ray, Ellie, and Mariuna. I would also like to thank my YouTube members, my Night Guards, Amy Omai, Mad Dog, Q Aaron 404, Lydia, Pickle Pepper 900, Hyperdroid, Spark Saturn, Sleepy, Nolan, Arcadeus, Toolshed Inc., Liz, Violet Poppy, Haley, Sophie, Poppy, Riley, JT Kelly 18, Louie, and Jackie. Those who made it to night 2, Mrs. Trapp and your boy Peachy. Those who made it to night 3, Crimson Dragonfly 07, The Moving Marker, I Blue Renditional W, and Just Because. Those who made it to night 4, Andromeda, Lanecore, V, Prince of Light, Sky Lex 157, Jazz, Quinn B29, Furandisu, Zankoshu, Rejin 2122, Toby, A Dan the First, Love Cats, Pablo, Booty, Tome, Withered Sigma, Leanne, Yoda 88 Yoda, B-Dub CEO, Kiyomi, Bonafide, Rattler, Kylie Smiley, Rebecca, Henry, Newt, Dalton, Amanda, Lionel, Hey Boy, and Icemint. And those who made it to night 5, Katie and Momo Peaches. I would also like to remind you to always be Freddies. Remember that Freddy stands for friendly, respectful engagement, discussion, and discourse yield success. And if you're clicking on this video without seeing any of the videos in my previous series, for context, my puppet, who is also my co-host, just died. My puppet just died. That's the context for what's about to happen. Okay, cool. Thanks. Enjoy the video.
No. The power of people believing in you can save you. The clicker can save you.
Swing! I know that you can't lie, and I think that that is what makes you so pure. Because when I told you that I didn't love you, I was lying. I love you, and because I do, I carry your memories in me. And because I remember you, it makes you real. May not be remnant, but every time I put my hand inside you, there's no better way of saying that. Every time I put my hand inside you, Toto, we formed this bond.
Toto!
That was rough to watch. And because this is a movie, the narrator comes in to say that it's over, and they lived happily ever after.
No, this isn't the end of the story. We still need to read the scoop. We have more books. This is The Scoop, the final Fazbear Frights story written by Kelly Para, and her name isn't even on the cover of the book, which is kind of a problem. It is on the cover of the ebook, but it really does suck to have a book that you helped write, that you wrote a third of, and your name's not even on it. Kind of upsetting. Like with Felix the Shark, we're looking into this story for details that might explain what separates it from the rest of the Frights series, and we're going to ask ourselves if that might have something to do with the Frights fiction fan theory. Why is it left out, and would it fit in with that theory? Let's take one last look at Kelly's writing. This is The Scoop. Mandy Mason is sitting in class. Her hair is in Princess Leia buns, and she's writing FNAF fanfiction. She gets a text from her friend, whose username is Total Misfit. Mandy's is M squared, because her name is Mandy Mason. So it's two M's, so it's M squared. You get it, you're smart. A new fic has dropped, a new Five Nights at Freddy's fan fiction. It's by user Freak Story, but Misfit says that Mandy's story is even better. The teacher notices her writing while she's supposed to be doing work, demands to see the paper that she's writing on, and reads out a sentence to the class. The animatronic looked dead, but in all reality, the bear watched and waited for the perfect opportunity to grab the little boy from across the room. The class laughs at Mandy and her pink hair. Mandy also has heterochromia, which the class bully, Melissa Chandler, bullies her for. I said Melissa Chandler! Mandy is bullied pretty hard by Melissa and the other girls in the prep school, the all-girl prep school that she goes to. They don't associate with her because it would be putting targets on their back for the mean girls to bully them too. Mandy goes home. She likes to eat licorice while she skateboards. Her mom and dad are busy at work, so she has to make dinner for herself. Her mom is going on a business trip soon to Utah. I said while we were talking about Felix the Shark that these stories might have been cut because they got too close to like real FNAF lore, where other stories left it very vague. So it's possible that in this story, them actually going to Utah was too close for Scott. It was too close to like the game's lore. We haven't even really heard Utah being used in the games. It's only been in the Silver Eye, so he might have thought that, hey, it's never been confirmed that it was Utah, so this book doing that is too far for me. So it's possible he didn't want this to establish too many details. Also, there's this. One summer, she'd stumbled upon the FNAF community. Die-hard gamers who loved the series for its secrets, who played the games habitually, wrote the fanfiction, and theorized about the game lore. The online community loved trying to unravel hidden mysteries within the FNAF universe. She had to admit she was pretty new to the technical side of gaming. She didn't know all the coding stuff, but she was an excellent researcher. She discovered an online decompiler that broke down the source code of certain games. At the moment, she was waiting on the decompiler to do just that for FNAF 3. She'd watched a video game theorist who had found clues in other FNAF games' code. She thought it would be a super cool idea, so she was trying it out for the first time on her own. While the FNAF games do exist in-universe, they've always been mentioned in a very vague way, like, yeah, there's something similar to the point-and-click Scott Cawthon-era FNAF games and the Security Breach era of the timeline, but the idea that the theorist community within the universe itself would treat them the way that we treat the fictional FNAF games isn't something we've ever really touched upon before. Like, in-universe, Fazbear Entertainment is a real company, there were real murders, and these games were made to sort of tell that history, but Fazbear Entertainment made the games to make light of that history so people wouldn't believe the rumors. But in real life, they're not. Like, imagine the difference in MatPat discussing something like murder, mystery, and whatever in a fictional FNAF game, and MatPat discussing, like, real murders in a real Chuck E. Cheese. Ignore the video where he did literally that, but the point is, I don't think that there would be actual FNAF theorist communities if the events that are depicted in the game were real. So I think what this is setting up is that in this universe, there is no Fazbear Entertainment, there is no real Freddy's, it's entirely a fictional game, just like in the real world. Mandy decompiles FNAF 3 and roots through the files. She's always chewing on a bit of licorice, which I think is really funny because typically a detective would have like a pipe if you're Sherlock Holmes or a cigar if you're a 1920s hard-boiled detective. So giving her a licorice stick in her mouth is actually very appropriate and funny because she's a kid detective, so she's always chewing on that Twizzlers. She finds a strange image of a rundown building within the FNAF 3 files called lookshauntednow.jpg. The building is on Willow Something Road. Throughout this investigation in the story so far, she keeps talking to a photo of her brother, addressing him like he's really there. She's holding the photo up to the screen so he can get a better look. She puts him down and says, "Stay here," while she goes and does something. She also has a stuffed animal that used to belong to her brother. And because this is a spooky story, I have a bad feeling that something bad may have happened to her brother and that he might be very dead. Mandy sees a flash of red in her peripheral vision, and she spins around to see what it is. My chair is broken. It's sinking. I'm sinking. I'm falling. And she spins around and notices that she left Ozzy on the floor and didn't put it on his shoulder when the video started recording. Whoops. Whoopsie doopsie. She spins around to look at her bed and notices that there's nothing there. The next morning, she talks to her dad in the kitchen while eating breakfast. He's on his way to work and he comments about her pink hair, so seemingly she only dyed her hair recently, possibly the day before. She starts telling him about the files that she went through and the photo, and she asks his opinion. Dad looked suddenly hesitant. "Why? This photo's not something illegal, is it?" "No, Dad, sheesh. What kind of person do you think I am?" His eyes widened. "Do you really want me to answer that?" Mandy smiled. "Maybe not. I do have pink hair." "I don't get it." "Okay, let's break this down. What kind of person do you think I am, Dad? As in, like, I'm clearly not a criminal hacker. I'm not going to be breaking the law." But he says, "Do you really want me to answer that?" So he does think that she's a certain kind of person, but if he said it out loud, it would sort of insult her in some way. She smiles at this and says, "Maybe not." So by smiling, she's like, she gets the joke. But by saying maybe not means that she doesn't actually want to hear what he has to say. She then says, "I do have pink hair," as in, pink hair is a sign of the kind of person that she is, that she understands why he thinks it but doesn't want him to say it. Pink hair can obviously be a sign of rebellion, so maybe the kind of person that he thinks she is like a rebel or a nonconformist. But if that's the case, I don't know why she would say maybe not. I think the likely conclusion here would be that the implications that her having pink hair is evidence that she's a lesbian. This could work in one of two ways. Either she's not a lesbian, but knows that she looks like one, whatever that means, according to the book. And so the dad not saying it is because she's like, "Oh, I'm not, but I understand that I look like one." So the dad is holding back, saying, "You look like a lesbian," and she laughs and goes, "Yeah, I don't want to hear it, but I do have pink hair." The alternative is that she is a lesbian, but it hasn't come out, but it's kind of an open secret. And so he's like, "Listen, if you want me to say what kind of person you are, I will." And she's like, "Not right now, but I do get it." The reason I lean toward those conclusions is because this is so subtextual that I don't know what else it could possibly be trying to say. This is never brought up again in the story. I don't know what else it's supposed to mean. If you have another idea, leave it in the comments below. Mandy goes to school. The mean girls rig her locker to explode and throw green shaving cream at her, which ruins her pink dyed hair. She also gets soaked. While she's cleaning herself off, someone steals her skateboard. She decides to dye her hair purple to cover up the mess. Purple? Like purple guy? She talks to her brother's photo again, and we learn that in the photo he is 3 years old. I don't like where this is going. Mandy, having an awful day, logs onto her FNAF fan forum and sees that nobody believes her about that photo being real. She starts a video call with her friend Lindy, who she met through FNAF and calls all the time to talk about theories, and they start to talk about one small, possibly unintentional detail, which is very realistic. So right here, ERX or ERY.
Where does it say that?
Or CRY.
Oh yeah.
I'm circling it.
Oh, CRT?
CRY.
All right, let me screen grab it.
Mandy and Lindy then talk to themselves for a while. Since they met online, they don't really know each other super well, and so they start talking about their lives and what interests they have, and, as it always inevitably does, this turns into trauma dumping. You have any siblings? Well, not anymore. Oh? Lindy's eyes widened behind her lenses. I'm so sorry. What happened? Is it okay to ask? I mean, I don't want to be... No, it's okay. My brother died when he was a baby, and I never got to meet him. They're not really sure why he died. Sometimes babies just don't make it, I guess. And Mandy copes with this by talking to a photo of her brother as if he's real, and teaches him FNAF lore. He was actually the older sibling, so not only did he not grow up, but she never actually got a chance to meet him. He died before she was even born. Lindy hangs up the call, and Mandy is left alone in her house. She started to stare into space, imagining Bobby still alive and grown just like her. He'd have dark hair like Mom, and he'd have been tall and slim like Dad. Maybe he'd crack jokes, and maybe he'd be into video games or some kind of star athlete. Something flickered at the top of the staircase, catching Mandy's attention. A small blue shoe was on the top step. Mandy sat up quickly on the couch and watched it shift out of view. 1 second it was there, and by 2 seconds it was gone. Mandy got up and moved slowly to the hall closet, where her dad kept a baseball bat. After grabbing the bat, she crept up the stairs, gripping the railing hard with her free hand. She looked down the hallway, then searched each room and bathroom trying to understand what she had seen. When she'd looked everywhere she could, and didn't find suspicious little blue shoes or the person wearing them, she just shook her head. I've been playing too much FNAF. Mandy goes to look at the decompiled FNAF 3 files again, but the photo of that weird building is missing. How could it be there one night and then gone the next? Like a dead baby. It had to mean something to the game lore, or be connected to the FNAF universe in some way. She was suddenly super cold. She sighed, spinning her chair around to get a sweater, and froze. Peering around the corner into her bedroom was a small child, looking at her. Mandy held her breath and didn't dare move. The child looked to be a boy about 5 or 6 with brown hair. He was tucked behind the doorway, covering most of his body. She saw his little hand gripping the door jamb, the shoulder of his bright red shirt. One eye peered at her. She blinked and he was gone. I like the parallels that we're building between her dead brother Bobby and the need to solve the FNAF lore. It's been really subtle and it's spread very well throughout the text, but then here, that manifests as an actual ghost child appearing before her. I'm guessing that this is a murdered kid. She's going to go have to solve his death, which symbolically will give her closure on her own brother, but despite how cliche that idea is, I really like the story. Mandy has a dream where she's in Fazbear's Fright from FNAF 3, and she sees a boy. She follows him into the room with the animatronic parts and tries to talk to him, but then he jumps at her with sharp teeth. Not like a child with sharp teeth, but like the Foxy jump scare in FNAF 2 sharp teeth. Mandy researches common tropes for why ghosts haunt you, and the book lists unfinished business, they have a message for you, they don't know that they're dead. And these are very interesting in terms of FNAF lore. We just learned about Remnant in the last book. So now we have to ask ourselves, how does Remnant work with those 3 things? She clicked on a location link. This building was indeed real, located in Utah, and the address was on Willow Field Road. I screamed the first time I read that. I let out an insanely cursed gasp of shock. The one moment that deserves this the most in the entire series is this one. The field! The building is a movie theater that only plays old silent movies. Mandy thinks how cool it would be to go there to watch a Lon Chaney film. Lon Chaney played a version of the Phantom of the Opera. I'm sure that you've seen this image before. It's that guy. Mandy tells Lindy the news. Lindy lives in Utah. That's so helpful. Throughout the story, we keep getting these blog posts from Mandy for her FNAF blog, and now we get one that spells out the mystery for her followers. It ends with, I reverse image searched the photo, sounds cool when I say it like that, and discovered the building is located in a particular state. This building is of an old movie house. I can't share all my secret facts yet until I solve this game theory. This isn't that important to the story, but it is what the story is famous for, and if I didn't mention it, people would get upset. Do you get it? Do you get it? The book says game theory. Mandy's mom is going to Cedar City for work, and that's where Lindy lives. So Mandy's going to go there with her mom and meet Lindy, and then they're going to drive to find this theater to solve the mystery. Lindy has a driver's license, that's important. So she's going to meet up with her FNAF friend and go and find a real Freddy's location and walk around. On the airplane, she thinks that she sees the ghost boy, but it's just a regular boy. So she goes to sit down in her seat again, and then she does see the ghost boy. She's gonna go meet Lindy the day after they arrive, but she spends the first night in the hotel researching this movie theater that they're going to. Before it was a theater, it was a diner, and a boy was kidnapped from the diner. Once the police began questioning the customers, frantic accounts were given of a mysterious man having been near the boy before the disappearance. Wow, Mandy murmured. She glanced at the copy of the man's featureless sketch. Dark eyes and hair, straight nose, flat mouth. The man was just so ordinary. For some reason, the paper sketch of the suspect had been printed hastily with purple ink, and they'd called him the Purple Man. Mandy thinks this is a crazy coincidence and starts researching it and finds that FNAF fans had already discovered this and thought it was a hoax. A kid kidnapped from a family diner in Utah by a Purple Man? The FNAF community did not think this was real, but Mandy does. Mandy falls asleep. Mandy dreams that she's in a FNAF restaurant. She sees the ghost boy again. He has hollow eyes and big teeth. He's wearing a shirt with a bear logo on it. This is not the Freddy's logo, it's just a bear. The boy attacks her, and she's suddenly woken up to her mom trying to comfort her because she was screaming in her sleep. The mom tells her that it's just a dream, and she blames the scary video games that Mandy plays. She then leaves to go back into her own hotel room. As she closes the door, the ghost boy appears behind it. Mandy is scared, but then the boy vanishes. She ends up sleeping in her mom's bed that night. Mandy's like 16, I don't know if I specified that, but she has a driver's permit but not her license and is currently in high school. I should have said that earlier. Mandy and Lindy arrive at the movie theater and find an employee who's been working there for 20 years, back when it was a diner with arcade machines. He tells them the story from his perspective. A boy wandered off, they couldn't find him, they called the cops, the kid was never found. What about the purple man? Did you see him? You mean the stranger? Jim shook his head. Nobody I saw that was suspicious. Sure, sometimes we got new people I hadn't met before. Some of the customers started telling the police about a guy they swore they saw, and they all had different descriptions of the guy. I never knew who they were talking about. Nothing came of it. I think everyone was just scared. We live in a small, quiet town. Everyone feels safe here. Then something like this happens and they wonder if they really are safe. But someone had to take Stevie, right? Mandy asked. He couldn't just have disappeared. He sighed. Yeah, he couldn't have just disappeared. Mandy and Lindy left without watching the movie because Lindy had to get home. That's sad, Lindy said as they walked to her car. Yeah, real sad. Mandy's mind was zipping through all the information. Did you see some of the similarities of this incident to Five Nights at Freddy's? Lindy shook her head. Not really. We have a missing boy and a purple man. Get it? Like William Afton, the purple guy? I guess so. That's only two small things. Mandy paused at Lindy's sedan. But you do see it, right? This must be the reason the photo was in the game files and why it got deleted the next day. The creator of the games was leading us here to solve something. We just need to figure out what so we can set the forum straight. Lindy stared at Mandy a moment. Are you okay? I love everything about this premise. But just remember, these are real people, not a game. Promise you'll be careful? Mandy smiled. Promise. Okay, so for some context about things that happened both before and after this book came out. MatPat's first ever FNAF theory is not good. The theory is fine, but the evidence is kind of odd. The theory is that you play as the murderer in FNAF, and you're in jail, and every night you're tormented by the spirits of the people you killed. His evidence for this is that there was a real shooting at a Chuck E. Cheese, in which an ex-employee went through the building, shooting the employees and robbing the safe. And MatPat assigned each of these real-world murder victims one of the animatronics. In the video, he does this with respect, and he has plenty of disclaimers that he's not trying to make light of the situation, but I just think that that was still not really a cool thing to do. This conversation where Mandy, who's trying to solve a game theory and is a FNAF nerd, is trying to tie this real-world story to the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, and her friend goes, this isn't a game. It might not be direct commentary on MatPat's first FNAF video, and I'm not saying Kelly did that on purpose, but it fits really, really well. It fits so well that I would assume most people, including MatPat, would have thought of it as such. But MatPat's take on the story was not that it was commentary on a video he made, but that it was actually part of a scrapped ARG, or a scrapped large scavenger hunt. Felix the Shark is a treasure hunt story where a fictional book gives you answers for finding a real place. And this story is about a FNAF theorist investigating a real place in Utah and its connections to Freddy's. And it seems like maybe these stories are grouped together to give us clues to finding something in real life. This is something that Gravity Falls did. It is not uncommon, especially around the time that these books were coming out. This ended up not being true, and unfortunately a bunch of theorists started trying to hunt down leads, just like Dirk did in the Felix the Shark book, and just like Mandy is doing here. And they ended up annoying a bunch of businesses and doxing people. This story, which could be commentary on how inappropriate MatPat's first FNAF video was, led to him making his second inappropriate FNAF video. I personally do not think MatPat did anything wrong with his ARG hunt video. The actions of stupid people who watch that video are not on him, and I will defend his line of reasoning and his decision to put out that video 100%. I am just astonished myself that he was able to read this book, and instead of going, yeah, maybe it was inappropriate to connect FNAF to a real-world shooting, instead he went, the book is real. There's also a weird error on page 142. Mandy goes back to the theater the next day to talk to Jim the maintenance man. She asks to see the back rooms, and Jim says yes if she promises not to touch anything. He will take her there. Please note how weird this part is. Mandy crossed her clunky black boots. Promise. Alright. Oh, hello, Mrs. Robbins. Jim practically bowed his head in greeting. The woman smiled. Her hair was brown with gray streaks, her face slightly lined. She clutched her purse to her side, and there was something about her that seemed really unhappy. For some reason, Mandy suddenly felt the same feeling in the center of her chest. It was familiar to her. She felt it many times alone at home. A feeling of emptiness and ultimate sadness. A feeling that Mandy sometimes thought would never go away. Okay, so first, the field. She's sensing that she's deeply unhappy because of the death of someone, which is also what Mandy feels. But the more important, interesting thing to talk about here is that Mrs. Robbins is never actually introduced to the scene. She's addressed when Jim just kind of weirdly segues into saying, "Hello, Mrs. Robbins." You would assume that there'd be a sentence like, "A woman had walked through the door carrying a purse." Or, "Jim bowed to a woman behind Mandy who turned around to see that there was a lady there." But the text just saying "the woman" after the woman hadn't been introduced is very weird. And obviously, yes, the woman is the kidnapped boy's mother. Mandy goes into the back room, which has a bunch of old stuff from the diner. Since she's back there Nancy drewing it all by herself, she takes out her photo of Bobby, her dead brother, and talks to it. This is so that she can think things out loud for the benefit of the reader, even though she's alone. This is a great idea, and I appreciate this concept of her walking through the dark, talking to this imaginary boy, saying things out loud for the benefit of the audience. Absolute 10 out of 10, I approve. She sees an animatronic bear. The bear that was on the Ghost Boy's shirt was a logo for the restaurant because this is that bear. She gets close to the bear, it smells bad, then a mouse comes out of it, it scares her, she turns around to run away, and runs right into the Ghost Boy. She runs past him, but the ghost keeps appearing in front of him. As she reaches the exit, she turns to see the Ghost Boy blinking in and out of existence in front of the bear animatronic. Then, a newspaper clipping floats down to the floor. It's about the boy who was kidnapped at the diner, and she realizes that this ghost boy who's been following her is the boy who's been kidnapped, Stevie Robbins. Now she realizes what this is all meant. The boy is haunting her, a FNAF expert, by showing her visions of himself inside the restaurant from the games. Now that she's here, he, a missing boy, is standing in front of an animatronic bear. She walks back to the bear. She removes its head and peers inside. The head clicked and a gear sounded, as if some inner device was unlocking. Mandy lifted the head slowly and set it down on a box. She pulled over a chair and climbed up, peering inside. It was too dark to see, but Mandy still saw more than she needed to see to put these pieces together. She clicked on her phone light, searching inside. She saw a little bit of brown hair on the top of a small skull, and a patch of a bright red shirt. As she pieced together what she saw in her mind, terror gripped her entire body. She opened her mouth to scream, but nothing would come out. She jerked backward and fell off the chair, crashing to the floor. She couldn't scream. She couldn't breathe. She pushed to her feet and ran. We then cut forward a little bit. She's obviously contacted her mother and the police, and so now we get a scene where Mandy, standing with her own mother, is talking to Mrs. Robbins, the mother of the boy. "It's been awful, the not knowing. I would think about him every day, miss him all the time. I would wish he was safe back home with me. I think the day I lost him, I stopped living a bit." She sniffed. "These have been the loneliest years of my life, and to think all this time he's been here, waiting, hiding like he used to. I always felt closer to him when I came here each week, and now I know why. Thank you so much for finally bringing my boy home to me. Thank you for bringing me peace." This is kind of rough for the reader. The characters don't really reflect on this, but Mandy's mother, of course, has also lost a son. You would think that there'd be some sort of really deep coming home-esque conversation, but this is really it. The phrase, "the day I lost him, I stopped living a bit," is very ironic because Mandy's mother has also probably felt the exact same way. But we're never given that perspective. We're never given an explicit discussion of this topic. We see Mandy carrying around this photo of her brother, but her parents have never even addressed it at all. I knew from the beginning that finding this boy would likely be something that Mandy uses to cope with the passing of her brother, but this dialogue is so specific, and it not being commented on by the characters is very weird. I hope it was on purpose and the author did this to leave the reader hanging, as opposed to just sort of not realizing how significant it would be to have the conversation. Again, I hope it's on purpose. There's a meaning that can be derived from it being left unsaid, and so we'll sort of discuss that as the story goes on. Speaking of upsetting, they leave Utah early to go home. Mandy is genuinely upset by the entire ordeal and cries the whole way home. The mom talks about maybe getting her a therapist to work through her trauma, and Mandy finally uses this as an excuse to tell her parents what's actually bothering her in her life. "I'm weak. I'm a freak." She pulled out a tissue and wiped her nose. Mandy Marie, I don't want to hear those words coming out of your mouth. Shh, Dad placed a hand on Mom's. Sweetie, you're not a freak. You're strong and unique, and we love you for who you are. Mandy shook her head. They all think so at school. No one talks to me like a person. They call me names, say mean things. They put things in my locker. I'm a freak to them. Mom jerked upright on the couch. Who are they? I'll go right to the school and talk to the dean. We'll fix everything. Is it the Chandler girl bothering you again? She is so spoiled. No, Mom, I don't want that. Mandy's voice cracked as she said, I'm just so sad all the time because I'm lonely. She saw her parents meet gazes, and then they reached out for each other as they cocooned their daughter in a big, strong embrace. Mandy told them everything. She told them all about Melissa and her friends, the bullying at school and how she'd taken it for so long and never let anyone see how much it hurt her. That she was lonely at school and home, and that she wished Bobby was here and with them and had grown up with her. Her parents cried then because they wanted Bobby to be with them too. She told them about her online community, and how she immersed herself in the game lore because it allowed her to be a part of something she loved, and that she was accepted there. I think what's so upsetting is that this is a Fazbear Frights story, so it's supposed to end at the climax, but this story just keeps going. The story doesn't end dramatically with the discovery of the body and the solving the mystery. Instead, we get the characters going home and talking to one another and crying, and they eat and they sleep and they talk, and the parents have to go to work, and they choose to stay home instead because Mandy's just so upset. We're seeing the real life after of what happens after traumatic events, which we usually don't see in FNAF. A very, very, very long time ago, we talked about the precedent for the Frights fiction fan theory and how it comes from the Flash comic books. I'm going to go into more detail about that in the analysis section, but with that in mind, this next passage is very interesting. This is from Mandy's blog. M&M Scoop, entry 225. I solved a mystery regarding the building that I discovered in FNAF 3, everyone. I thought it would make me happy, but it didn't. It actually turned into an extremely sad adventure, where it started off thrilling and exciting, and then finished in a way that was full of sorrow and grief. I've decided to not share details because some things shouldn't be shared out of respect for families. I will say, I learned a lot during this investigation, and I will probably never know for certain how this mysterious building is connected to the FNAF universe. It could have been something as simple as inspiration. The only thing I'm certain of is, if the creator wanted us to know, I think he would tell us. Eminem. So we're dealing with a lot of meta elements in this story. This is not like the other FNAF stories where the games exist in-universe because an indie developer made them and it's all real. In this story, and in this story alone, FNAF is as fictional as it is in the real world. There is no Fazbear Entertainment, there is no Freddy's. The games exist as video games and nothing else. The other FNAF books and games exist in Mandy's world, but she is not a Frights character. She exists on a level of reality above the FNAF universe. So if this is Five Nights at Freddy's Fazbear Frights, Mandy exists here. She could read the Frights books. I explain Frights fiction by saying that these books are in-universe books, and thus Gregory from the games could pick one up and read about Oswald. Well, Mandy could launch Security Breach and play as Gregory, who could read about Oswald. She is not a Frights character. So far, we're 2 for 2 of these final stories from Felix the Shark being uniquely unable to fit in with the Frights fiction theory. I did not expect that going in. I did not know that that would be so important to both of these stories. These cannot be in-universe stories, or at least Felix, I think Scott would not want to be an in-universe story because it portrays this new family in a way that might be too close to the lore for him to want people to use, and this story certainly cannot be canon to FNAF. So, yeah, that might be why it's not canon. The comment at the end of Mandy's blog about the creator telling them if the building was important or not is very interesting because it's not, because FNAF is not based on anything real. I think this passage is Scott saying, if FNAF was based on something real, I would tell you. It's not based on a real shooting, MatPat. But in Mandy's story, it is based on a real disappearance, so I'm confused. I'm pretty sure that the photo only existed in the game that Mandy was looking at because of field-isms where Stevie wanted to get Mandy's attention. And so what's really odd about that element of the story is that while I'm 100% convinced that the field exists in the Frights universe, that does not necessarily mean it carries over to the games. Same thing with Agony, that might not exist in the games. The idea that the field carries over to another layer of reality above the games to Mandy is very strange, but it's also just so obvious if you read the story. It's a ghost interfacing with technology. So yeah, a lot of strange stuff, meta commentary, things that make my brain hurt if I think about them for too long. yeah, we're gonna move on because the story's not over. The press reports that Stevie wasn't kidnapped, he hid in the bear suit to hide from his mom, and he broke his neck. Mandy goes back to school. Melissa tries to bully her, but Mandy stands up for herself. This passage is actually very well done, and is basically what you should say to a bully. It's not what an after-school special would say you should say to a bully, it's what you probably should actually do. But then the bullies walk away and everybody claps, which I didn't like as much. Later that day, somebody returns Mandy's skateboard to her, and after class, a girl named Teresa tells her that she's really cool because she standed up to the bullies, and she wants us to be her friends. This is how the story ends. That night, Mom was home. Mandy's parents had decided to work out a schedule so that Mandy wasn't alone so often. She told them they didn't have to do that, but they said it was time for some family changes. Mom wasn't going to be traveling as much, and Dad would bring some of his work home instead of spending so many late nights in the office. As Mandy was about to go up the stairs to her room, she heard a light tap at the front door. Frowning, she turned and opened the door. Mandy's eyes widened to see Stevie Robbins standing before her, whole, healthy, and smiling. His color was good, his brown eyes happy. He peeked over her shoulder to see if her mom was nearby, but she wasn't. Then she smiled at Stevie, the way he was supposed to look when he was a healthy little boy who once lived with his mother. "Thank you," Mandy heard the words in her head. Mandy gave a nod. Stevie began to walk away. He turned back once more and waved. "Bobby says hello." Mandy waved back as her heart clenched, watching Stevie disappear into the dark night. I was very open about the fact that halfway through reading Coming Home, I started crying, and I didn't stop for the entire rest of the story. It wasn't like crying, it was just like water coming out of my eyes as I kept reading. So that was like one long cry over half of a story. This was, when I read it for the first time, real tears. Like, I had to lie down because I was like actually crying. Some people might find that ending very cheesy, but it really got to me. I forgot to say analysis, but I don't care. We did most of the analysis as we were going anyway. The writing of the story is a little too simplistic for me. These authors will typically choose to write child character-centric stories in a much more simplistic way than they do when they're talking about adults, which is annoying. Because obviously the books are all written for the same audience. So, like, I don't know, when there's a kid, you have to be like, golly gee, I don't know what's going on. And then when it's an adult, it can be like the most depressing thing you've ever read. It's the same audience, it's the same people reading the stories, just write them all mature. Just write all of them mature, guys. Besides that, I feel like, just like Felix the Shark, it was a very solid story the whole way through. None of this do the same thing 3 times and then the climax happens just because stuff that plagued the old FNAF books. This story actually uses the rule of 3s very well, because she sees the ghost boy a couple times, she has dreams about him a couple times, but it's not really interrupting the flow of the story. I think that Step Closer was like one of the worst offenders of this rule, but I think the story actually did it very good. I would not cut or change anything in the story. I like how the plot points all came together in the end. I like that it was a happy ending. I didn't realize until the end, but I never thought that Mandy was going to actually be in any danger. Maybe because the story was presenting itself as more real, so I wasn't really scared about what was going to happen to her. Like, it didn't even cross my mind until the very end that I had never once considered whether or not Mandy was going to die. In all the other Fright stories, whenever you start reading, you're like, okay, I wonder if this boy's going to be punished. I wonder if this girl's going to die. I wonder if this person's going to be punished and die even if they didn't do anything wrong. But for this story, I never once wondered what would happen to Mandy. I tried looking into the names of the characters to see if there's anything interesting about them, because naming characters Mandy and Lindy and Melissa seems like there's like something about them that's important. Like, oh, Mandy sounds like Lindy, and Mandy sounds like Melissa. I couldn't find anything. It's interesting that the kids at school bully Mandy and call her a freak, but then one of her favorite fanfiction writers is named Freak Story. On the very first page of the story, when Mandy's in class, we read her fanfiction, and it says, "The animatronic looked dead, but in all reality, the bear watched and waited for the perfect opportunity to grab the little boy from across the room." I do not think that this is supposed to show us that the animatronic did kill Stevie. I think it's just foreshadowing and more field-isms. When Mandy is thinking about Freddy's, she's being inspired by these real events. This is where I segue to talking about The Flash. It's been a while, so here's a refresher. DC wanted to reboot their superhero comics, but they still wanted the old comics to matter. So over 100 issues into the Flash comic series, they stopped following Jay Garrick and started following Barry Allen. Barry's story opens with him reading Jay Garrick's Flash comic books. The old Flash comics are in-universe comic books for Barry. But then a couple years later, DC wanted to cross over their old and their new characters, so they had Barry travel to a parallel dimension to meet Jay Garrick. In order to explain how this was possible, they explained that real knowledge of this other universe seeps into people's thoughts while they sleep, and that the real author of the comics in real life, in our real life, was inspired to write Jay Garrick comics because he was actually getting a glimpse into another universe. The comic writer in our real life is also the comic writer in Barry Allen's world. So in Barry Allen's reality, a comic book writer has dreams of something that happens in Jay Garrick's reality, writes them into comic books for Barry Allen to read, and then in our real life, a comic book writer and artist with the same name is writing the story about Barry Allen figuring this out and talking to Jay Garrick. So what in Barry Allen's world is real is also real to the writer of the issue in our universe. He's actually seeing into C-197. So real Scott is writing about how the in-universe Scott was inspired to make FNAF by some real events in the universe. So in-book Scott is inspired by this real thing, even if he doesn't know it, even if it's just the field inspiring him. So real-world Scott writes that fake-world Scott was inspired by an in-universe fake real event. This book was really, really good. It wasn't like a masterpiece of literature, but it was effective and engaging. It was definitely above average for a Fright story. I'm glad it was published. I'm glad Felix the Shark was published. I'm glad that this book exists and the stories weren't just scrapped forever. They're actually some of my favorite. Coming up next is the final story, You're the Band. We're actually almost done. Don't look at the progress bar. It's almost over. But what's not over is who is incessantly ringing my doorbell.
It's like the Raven.
It's not like the Raven, it's like insistent trick-or-treaters or persistent trick-or-treaters. I think persistence is good, insistence is bad.
What?
Now, people are gonna love that line in the future, trust me. Should we go and open it?
Take this.
The clicker.
Yes.
I don't know how helpful this is gonna be. When it turns you into a cartoon, you still died when you got eaten by a shark.
I thought for a second it might be Bonnie Jean coming home.
Say that again.
Bonnie Jean coming home?
Oh my god. This is a musical. The clicker brought us into a musical. Not just any musical. This is... Brigadoon.
Does this mean the zone of time around Cambridge is fading?
When the town's fading into our reality, they call it Cambridge. When it's leaving, they call it Went-a-Doon. But for the one day a year when it's in our world, they refer to it as Brigadoon. I don't understand time zones. They're so confusing.